Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Culture Books podcast. It is episode 24. We are doing chapter 12. That's written the letters 12. When I say the letters 12, it's the word 12 written out. My name is John, and I'm joined by...
Sheridan.
And we are no longer in the Balinese jungle. We are back in our living room. In fact, the clock is threatening to intervene at any given moment, so let me just silence it. Okay, and Sheridan, how are you?
I'm good.
The world has gone mad today. Donald Trump looks likely to be the next president of the United States.
It does. We might need Zakalwe to come and fight a war.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's
Do
an
you
interesting
think
one.
the culture...
The culture would be anti-Trump. I'm not sure they'd be pro-Democrat. I think they'd be pro-Palestine. And I say that because Ian Banks was pro-Palestine all his life. All right, what are we doing now?
You have 30 seconds to give us a recap of where we're up to.
Okay. Count me in.
3, 2, 1.
So our hero, Sheridan Zakalwe, in this timeline is moving forward in time. We're no longer exploring his past until we get to the next chapter. He has been travelling across the galaxy to meet up with an old comrade in arms to try and avert a war between a humanist faction who are carbon fascists and the other guys. In the last episode, Zakalwe was trying to basically hijack a spaceship, and it wasn't going particularly well. And there we go. I'm done.
You didn't really get...
Yeah, I did. He was trying to hijack a spaceship, and it wasn't going well. That's pretty much exactly where we got up to at the end of the chapter end.
No, they got captured.
Well, the lights sort of went out in the middle of his thing.
Yeah, well, so all right, now it's my turn.
Okay, now it's your turn to recapitulate this chapter, and your 30 seconds starts in 3, 2, 1.
We start with Zakalwe and Bache being captured on a ship, and then there's some sort of like this little bit of negotiating. They go back down, and then Culture gets involved, and Culture's like, yeah, you got to fight a war, but we can't help you. And then he fights a war, and then there's a bit of foreboding, and I kind of think he's going to die.
You think Zakalwe's going to die?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, maybe I'll tell you when we get to that bit of the chapter.
Okay, you've got 6 seconds to go, so I'm going to have to pause that timer. Okay.
Oh, I should have mentioned he won the war. Well, it looks like he's going to win the war.
Is he going to win the war?
Looks like he's going to.
He's on the edge of winning the war, but the culture's
kind of warning him that maybe they're not going to. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But that's the foreboding.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, we'll get there.
We will get there. There was this weird little introductory with him standing in a long gallery and curtains billowing around him, and it's this line here that I agree is foreshadowing. He looked somehow insubstantial, like some statue or a dead man, propped against the battlements to fool the foe. Somebody spoke his name, and then he comes out of a dream.
Oh, that's another one. I hadn't picked it up at that point in the chapter.
Yeah, it was funny. I opened this chapter today to just skim it again. I was like, I don't actually remember that intro at all. But there it is.
Look, as someone who doesn't read the book consistently and has a very poor memory, these cold openings are very difficult.
Yes. Anyway, somebody spoke his name, Zakalwe Sheridan, and then he realizes he's in the prison on the ship, and then there's some stuff about interrogating his memories with a culture training and subtle changes to find it, and then we get all the interactions between the ship's captain and Zakalwe. I love the captain in this. He really hates Zakalwe.
Totally.
as you would when someone's blown up half your ship in space.
Totally disrupted me.
Yeah.
It's ruined my mission.
So I'll read a paragraph here. Yes, really, Mr. Zakalwe, I've just received a military communication from the Balzite hegemony of Mersey. They want to uplift you and Mr. Baichai before we connect with the station. As they're threatening to attack us if we don't comply, I intend to do as they ask, technically under protest, but frankly, it will be a relief to be rid of you. I may add that the vessel they intend to take you off with must be a couple of centuries old and was not thought to be spaceworthy until now. If it survives to make the rendezvous in a couple of hours, you ought to have an eventful journey through Mersey's atmosphere. Mr. Baichai, I believe if you reasoned with the Balzite people, they might let you continue with us to Mersey Station. Whether you decide, sir, let me wish you a safe trip. There's just so much malice loaded into such polite language there. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. And I, yes. Anyway, what did you think of that whole bit?
Yeah, I like the captain's cool. I mean, I was like just wondering what was going to happen to him though.
The captain,
No, Zakalwe.
Zakalwe. Yes. Well, and he ends up in a. I feel like it's something almost equivalent to a space shuttle. It's not much better than that.
Yeah. Well, he says, isn't that where he says you have to put a suit on when you get into a ship? You know it's bad news.
It's a bad ship, yeah. Which is, definitely a diss on the modern state of rocketry and space travel. There's another book of Banks's. It's not a culture one, but it's adjacent. I think it's The Algebraist, where they make a joke about how if you need to worry about re-entry, you just don't have enough power. Right, okay. And then Zakalwe asking Baichai, so these guys, they're on the good guys' side. There's so damn many of these little wars. And Baichai saying, well, in theory they are. I think they believe planets and machines can have souls, which is one of those things where when you get into a religion, just because they're notionally in agreement with you, there might be some very nasty twists and turns with how they got there and what they're going to do with it. And then the line here, Zakalwe is still under the belief that they're after Baichai at this stage of the chapter. Why they wanted Baichai, he wasn't sure, though he vaguely recalled that the priests were into hero worship in a fairly serious way. And then when he meets the hegemonarchy astronauts, this line, the suited men were visored. The suited men wore visored helmets, their pale brown faces visible inside, foreheads marked with a blue circle. The circles actually seemed to glow, he thought, and he wondered if they were there because of some generous religious principle to help snipers. There was always a joke that the American tanks in World War II had a big white star painted on the side. And
it's like a target.
It was always a really good place to aim at, yeah. Although the Russians also had a red star, so things, anyway, Germans had a cross, so... And what did you think of the hegemoniarchy people as you were introduced to them?
Well, these are the gay priests, right? They went they went into the gay priests thing real quick.
Yes. I do want to talk to that when we get introduced to the boys, because I think Banks has made a quite awful error that is a product of the 80s. But
you did say to me that you thought there was an error in this chapter, and I was unable to find it. I assumed it was going to be something about the military tactics, which
no, military tactics are excellent in this.
Right.
Yeah. They're extremely good. Well, I mean, one thing that the book is literally called Use of Weapons, of course. One thing that is a recurring theme in this is Zakalwe with good to brilliant tactics butting up against civilian leadership that is unwilling to accept good advice because it means doing unpleasant things like trading territory for time.
Or destroying bridges.
Yeah, blowing up bridges, abandoning holy sites that have no military use.
These people don't really seem like they really want to have a proper war, though. They're just sort of...
I think it's been sort of forced on them, but they're a backwards, I mean... There's lots of religions in the world that hold back the technological development or the social development of the places where they live. You could argue sometimes for better or worse now that we're watching the tech bros take over the United States. But is technological development always a good thing? Social development maybe, but you've got to agree on what progress is. Yes. Anyway, we will get to that bit in a second. I did love the final line with the captain where Zakalwe says, Captain, sir, could I have my earring back, please? No, the captain said with a beatific grin. Now get off my ship.
The earrings are culture earpiece.
It's his terminal.
Yeah.
So, he was hoping he could, talk to Smart, for example. And then we get this line that you already referenced. It was a bad sign when they made you put on a suit inside a ship. The troopers who'd taken him from the clipper sat behind him. The three-man crew, also suited up, seemed suspiciously busy, and he had the disquieting impression that the manual controls in front of them were not just for emergencies. The craft re-entered the atmosphere spectacularly. Buffeting, creaking, surrounded by gas glowing bright. Seen through, he realised with a gut-wrenching shock. Windows, crystal or glass, not screens. So I do love the sort of the panicky description of, oh my God, this is some sort of primitive Earth level tech going on here. So you can hear the plaintive cries of Roy the cat there, folks, and I apologise for that, but we're just going to keep going for now.
I don't know what he wants.
He's been fed. And then there was a description, because as people who listened to the last episode know, we've just been in Indonesia. This bit felt a bit like flying internal airways in Indonesia. The craft trundled on for a worryingly long time, slewing twice. It's that sort of dodgy landing, which had some memories. Though, as I recall, the shuttle needed absolutely colossal runways to land on because it came in so fast. I definitely feel, the space shuttle was state of the art when this was written, so I feel that there's a strong reference there. And then the description, when they finally rolled to a stop, the three crewmen all sat back, slumped in their seats, arms dangling over the edges, silent and staring into the rain-filled night. There's a few times when you've been through something really hectic, you're just like... And then we meet all the priests, and they all start chanting, Zakalwe, Zakalwe.
That's when he must be like, uh-oh.
Well, literally, uh-oh, he said to himself, thunder bellowed in the hills, which is very foreboding. They start trying to call him Messiah, and the description of their faith here. Our faith has a tradition of finding outside influences because they are always greater. The high priest, Naporia, he'd said his name was, made a bowing motion. And what can be greater than the man who was Commil? Commil. He had to dredge his memory for that one. Commil, that was what he'd been according to the cluster's media. Director of military operations when he and Baichai had been involved in the whole crazy dance the last time. Baichai had been Compol, in charge of politics. These fine divisions. So then, your deeds are legend, Commil, Zakalwe, it's all very exciting. This is kind of what Zakalwe's always wanted to be recognised as.
They use this word, be seen. You have been beseen.
Yes, beseen. Yeah.
That's like not a word.
Yeah, it is.
I highlighted it in the Kindle dictionary.
Yeah.
And it does not come up.
It certainly feels biblical. I'd need to dig a lot deeper to check if it was ever actually used in a biblical sense. But if he's a made-up word, it seems obviously clear that it means you've been seen in the prophecies.
Yep, the Google look. What fresh hell this is with this Google? What do they call it?
Google
Gemini.
AI. Yeah.
Which has made its way onto my phone this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's not identifying it.
Okay. Anyway, that word seemed very clear to me, but I have got a bit more spiritual guidance in my life than you, Sheridan. So.
It literally asks what it means.
Yeah, well, just because the godless Google doesn't know what it is either.
No, Zakalwe does. He says, beseen.
Okay, well, anyway, it's...
And he says, indeed, you are our salvation, our divine recompense. You have been sent.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, I'm just saying, if you've been around priests a lot, it seemed obvious.
That's what she said.
Okay, and then
it might have been an inappropriate joke.
And then we get the comic relief of the chapter. And here are your boys, the high priest said, sweeping aside a curtain in the bedroom to reveal a languorously displayed half-dozen or so young men lying on a very large bed. Thank you, he said, nodding to the high priest. He smiled at the boys, who all smiled back. At least the boys were smiling. At least they're happy to be there. And when it says boys, it could well be over the age of consent. Let's all try and hope so. My problem with this line, though, is they're describing them as being boys and extremely young men for the pleasure of the older men. And then there is a line when he gets in contact with Smar where he says, but I'm in here with a gang of homosexual priests who think I'm going to solve all their military problems. And it comes back to this, I don't know if maybe he did mean they were all of consenting age, but there was this idea, particularly in, say, the 70s and 80s, that homosexuality and pedophilia were linked in a way that we now really don't think is fair or accurate.
Correct, yes.
So I found that very jarring, and I just wonder if it's a little product of its time, because in most ways these books have aged extremely well, and I feel it's just a little one that I think Banks would have written slightly differently today.
Fair call.
Yes.
I didn't notice it, actually.
Hmm.
That must be my unconscious bias coming through.
Sure. Okay, so Smar then says, Sharadanine, these people have successfully incorporated a belief in your martial prowess into their religion. How can you deny them? Believe me, it would be easy. Like it or not, Sharadanine, you become a legend to these people. They think you can do things, which does imply Smar doesn't think he can do things. But so what am I supposed to do? Guide them, be their general. That's what they expect me to be, I think. But what should I really do? And then we get the whole where he's obviously being bullshitted by the culture. And she says, win their wars, Zakalwe. We're putting our weight behind the forces you're working with. And I mean, throughout this chapter, there is absolutely no sign that the culture is putting any weight behind this side.
Yeah, they seem like they're a really kind of pretty crappy army.
and they're not getting any help. And Leonard, like,
well, I mean, she does say they're not going to give him intelligence. She says that.
Yeah, I know that it's, but it's also intelligence is the easiest thing in the world to give. You know, and I mean, just look at the way, you know, particularly when Russia invaded Ukraine, the Ukrainians were able to absolutely smash the initial wave because the Americans were feeding them very high level intelligence. Sorry, not just high level intelligence, very detailed intelligence. Yeah. Anyway, and then, of course, he remembers, no soldiering, he recalled Smar saying some time ago now. No effing soldiering, he muttered to himself. But then soldiering is his thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I think there's a line here about how he, you know, falls asleep one night utterly exhausted and thinking, wow, I'm actually happy.
Well, yeah, so, like when he takes off the officer's garb and puts on like the regular
soldier Scotch clothes.
Because he's like, I need to move. Like, you know, he's super into it.
Yeah. Yeah. But
it's his vibe.
It's his vibe. He's doing what he loves and he's being good. He's doing something he's good at.
Yeah.
We all love doing things we're good at. Which makes me wonder why we all keep pushing ourselves to do things we're not good at. But anyway.
I don't know why I go to work every day.
There was a good line here that public opinion in the cluster could tolerate the technologically enhanced continuation of a pointless war so long as men, women and children died in relatively small regular batches. But the thought of 1 million or so being incinerated at once, nuked in a city, was not to be tolerated, which does remind me of some modern events where we like the death tolls, regular though they may be, to be kept low level and preferably not seen on mobile phone footage. Yes. So we've got the Empire on one side and the Hegemonarchy on the other side. Now, we know the Hegemonarchy's got a thing for priests with boys, which is extremely distasteful to us. The Empire, I never really get a sense for who they are or what they are.
Yeah, no, you don't.
I certainly don't get a sense they're particularly bad, although Empire has certainly got some negative connotations.
I don't know, Hegemonarchy doesn't sound very good either.
No, Hegemonarchy sounds extremely bad. Particularly when it's a pedophile religious one. But yeah, and I used the word pedophile there because Zakalwe had used the word pedophile, so it's the only reference I've got to go with. No, he didn't.
He used the word
gay. Yeah. Sorry, I take it back.
I was thinking, why didn't they?
No. Anyway, my apologies. We're getting confused here. There was a nice line here. The officers seem to know more about the disposition of the enemy's forces than they did about the feelings of their own men. And that's a classic thing in war, in that everyone thinks the enemy's bigger and stronger and everywhere because
they're seeing it.
It's just the easy conclusion to draw, and it's very easy to let the enemy get into your head that way. Right, so then we get a description of him dressed up to go out into the field. He wore a plain uniform without even the half dozen or so medal ribbons that even the most junior officer seemed to warrant, just for existing. He spoke to the most dull, demoralised, thoroughly hidebound field generals and colonels, to their staff and to the foot soldiers and tank crews, as well as to the cooks and the supply teams and the orderlies and the doctors, which this is the sort of thing that good generals definitely do and bad generals don't. But I mean, you see pictures of, and I'm sure this is a reference that Banks is going for here. Eisenhower, in his field dress, only wore 3 medals. As opposed to you see. The point is Eisenhower had, by that point, probably 100 medals. He didn't need to impress anyone with how many medals he had.
Aren't there rules around this stuff?
Generals can do whatever they want.
Right.
And there are also rules about cutting down the number of medals you're wearing. You go by reverse order of precedence.
Yeah.
Order of precedence. So the most important ones you keep on, but you can cut it back.
You get rid of the others.
Yeah, particularly at senior levels. Once you get to general, you tend to get a lot of decorations from foreign countries.
Yeah.
And you don't have to wear those at all. Though when you're visiting those countries, it's
probably a good idea to whack it on.
Yeah. And then this line at the end of this section, he had decided within the first couple of days that the main problem the priests had was themselves, which, there's an argument you can make about the leadership of so many countries. Sheridan, you look troubled. Now you're staring at me blankly.
I thought I could smell a cat poo.
Right, okay, well,
sorry.
Hopefully we've avoided that crisis.
I was wondering if that's why he was meowing. You can edit that out.
Sure, no, that's staying in.
I don't think it is.
Then we get some more description that I liked. There was a valley with a dam at its head that might also provide an effective trap if the Imperial Army made it that far. He remembered the concrete island, the snivelling girl, and the chair. This is a classic thing that you can rarely pull off the same trick twice. And I think there's a little throwaway line later in the chapter about the plan not coming off with blowing up the dam.
Yes, there is, yeah.
But you get historically, particularly things like the Dutch, whenever the French invaded them, used to blow the dikes and drown the French army on quite a regular basis. But then there was the time when it all froze over and the French came across and captured their ships. So you've got to be careful with that sort of thing. And then he's trying to convince the priests to do a decapitation strike on the imperial court using the spaceship.
Does he ever get to do that? I can't remember.
We'll get to that. So describing it to them, we put it into space and bring it back in, down on top of the Lake Palace. It's a good 400 tons, even travelling at only 10 times the speed of sound, it'll hit like a small nuke going off. We'll get the entire court and the general staff in one go. We offer peace to the Commoners' Parliament immediately. With any luck, we'll cause immense civil disturbance. Probably the Commoners' Parliament will see this as their chance to grab real power. The army will want to take the reins itself and may even have to turn around and fight a civil war. Junior aristos filing competing claims should complicate the situation nicely. But Naporet said, this means destroying the victorious, does it not? The other priests were shaking their head. Well, impacting at 4 or 5 kilometres a second won't leave it totally undented, I suspect. Then he smiled, letting the priest ramble on for a little while. He was fairly certain the priest looked on the hegemonic victorious as their escape route if things went badly in the end.
That's probably true.
Yes. And then moving on to... He left them to mull over the concepts of hypersonic dive bombing. No suicide mission required. The craft's computers were perfectly capable of taking it up and bringing it straight down. Symbol trashing. A lot of peasants and factory workers would care about their piece of high-tech Bulberry getting junked. And decapitation. Probably the most worrying idea of the lot for the high priests. What if the Empire thought of doing it to them? I do like this idea that, the leader's like, the regular people will be so worried about our status symbols. And it's like, regular people just want to get fed. Maybe have a dance on Saturday night. But yeah. And then we get to, he's been busy, he's getting the army back in shape, he's seeing plans to sucker the Imperial Army in by giving way in key areas, pulling them into a killing field, which is, again, the sort of thing better generals do. And even once you've done it once or twice, then the enemy don't dare advance too fast, but for fear that you're doing it to them, and then they just sort of sit there and they can't do anything.
Right. I knew you would like this chapter.
Sorry. Yeah.
I was like, wow, this episode could go for a really long time, but then I realised I'd have nothing to add to these military tactics discussions.
Well, you're doing quite well there. You just here to react anyway, Sharon.
I'll just go,
Well, a bit more reaction than that would be good. He was busy, he realised one day, as he lay down to sleep in an old castle that had become the operational HQ for this section at the front. The sky had bloomed with light on the tree-lined horizon and the air shaken with the sound of a bombardment just after dusk. Busy, and he had to admit, as he put the last reports on the floor under the camp bed and put the light out and was almost instantly asleep, happy.
Loves it.
Well, it's good that he found some happiness somewhere. And then there was about the fact he hadn't heard from the culture. He wondered if they ever just forgot things. Maybe they'd forget about him, leave him here, struggling forever in the priests and the Empire's insane war. It does seem unlikely that the Mines will ever forget anything though, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
There's a little line here about he had the Air Force attack the supply lines the majority of the time, not the front, which is still incredibly controversial in Britain to this day. Because
dare I ask why?
People whose relatives were in the army were like, why weren't they bombing the German tanks? Why were they we could see them flying overhead, they weren't helping us. And they were, because
they're going behind and getting the supply lines.
So the tanks ran out of petrol. But when the tank's right in front of you, and hasn't run out of petrol yet, and then the trick with the dam didn't work this time. The charges placed under it just didn't go off. And then feeling right full of himself, he had to move fast to ship 2 elite units to cover the pass above that valley. And then trying to explain to the priests, we're falling back, but they are in much worse shape than we are, taking far heavier casualties. Each metre is costing them blood, and all the time their supply lines get longer. We must take them to the point where they start to think about pulling back, then present them with the seeming possibility of a knockout blow. But it won't knock us out. It knocks them out. He looked around. Believe me, it'll work. You may have to leave the Citadel for a while, but when you return, I guarantee it will be in triumph. Now, if you were one of the priests, would you be buying this?
Well, I don't know. They don't seem to know much about war, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I presume they've been doing better with Zakalwe around.
Well, they haven't been doing better. He keeps giving ground, giving up their holy places. The map looks worse every day. But they do worship him as the great Commil, and they've heard of all his exploits in the past. He is taking them into his confidence. He is explaining what he's trying to do. So, but their nerves would still be absolutely fraying. And then they've got a little bit from the point of view of the Imperial High Command watching through their field glasses. Reconnaissance suggested the infidel priests were making preparations to leave their citadel. Spies indicated that their spacecraft was being ready for some special mission. The general radioed the court high command. The order to advance from the city was given the following day. So that's quite clever. So Zakalwe preparing the ship has got the Empire thinking the priests are about to run away because they're thinking that the priests are still acting like the priests. Then we get this bit. The priests looked at the territory they had lost, the fraction they had left, and they thought it was all over for them. He looked at his relatively unscathed divisions, his fresh units, his cracked squads, all positioned just where they should be, knives laid against and inside the body of an overextended, worn-out enemy, just ready to cut. And he thought it was all over for the Empire. Hello, Ian. Sorry, that's a bossy Kelpie, named after Ian Banks, actually. So it's good she's getting in on the show. And then finally, Smar turns up again. What did you think of this?
Well...
Sorry, Scaffin turns up first.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Clearly, something's going on because they said they weren't going to interfere. So you're like, well, there's a reason you're here.
I did like...
Well, she doesn't seem very happy either.
Zakalwe's initial reaction, Scaffin Antiscore, this is an unexpected honour. Smar's letting you out alone these days, or is she about to? And then the drone saying, oh, she's on her way down. And then you have to leave, Sharadanine, she told him. Leave? When? Now, tonight, tomorrow morning at the latest. He looked confused and laughed. Okay, I confess, the Catamites were starting to look attractive, but what do you think of Smar's line of reasoning to him here?
Well, that the truce isn't going to hold.
Well,
she's basically saying he's in grave danger.
Yeah. Also, basically, they're not happy that he's actually turned it around and looks like he's winning.
But isn't that what they wanted him to
That's
do?
what they wanted him to put up a good fight. I don't think they actually wanted him to destroy the empire.
Well, you don't know
Because
that, though.
the whole point is that we've been led through in this lots is that they never tell their agents what they're supposed to achieve.
True. But I just thought there was a bit of foreboding because, you know, she's like, you've got to leave tonight, tomorrow morning at the latest.
Yeah, because it's going to be a massacre in the city.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm going to stay.
Mm.
It's like, I don't know. I feel like something's going to happen.
Mm.
He's going to stay too long.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, foreboding, the boding is definitely put in the foreground here. They've been foreboded.
They have.
It's happening.
Forebode.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, she's even saying the Citadel will be taken over by the troops outside. There'll be an Imperial Commando squad brought in by humanist-controlled aircraft, which is implying that there's more outside intervention coming in.
Yes.
That the culture's willing to tolerate.
So do you think he wants to stay because he's attached to the troops?
Yeah. He's been ordering these guys to their death for months and building a sense of camaraderie and
Can't leave.
Doesn't want to leave, doesn't want to abandon them. This has been his masterwork. Yeah, this is the one where he's getting it all right. In the fandom there's an argument quite often that Zakalwe always stuffs everything up, and the culture puts him in places to stuff things up. And I disagree. I think there's plenty of places shown in the book where he is competent. And certainly in this chapter, it's all coming together for him. he's pulled off a masterpiece. It does remind me a little bit as well. After the Hannibal was beaten by the Romans, he had quite a long career in what we now think of today as Turkey and Syria as a mercenary general, and I think that's a bit of an inspiration for Zakalwe's character in this. But yeah. So I guess we had two ships in this. There was the Osson Emnissire or whatever that clipper was, and the Hegemonici Victorious. What's your favourite ship?
Hegemony Victorious.
Hegemony.
What did you say?
It's the Hegemonici.
I can't say the word.
Okay.
So that one, mainly because they like it the most.
Okay. What did you think of the Hegemonici?
As a people, well, you mean you don't get a lot.
You don't.
They don't seem very smart.
The priests are enormously smart. There does seem to be a functioning society under it that Zakalwe taps into.
Yes.
To turn things around.
I've got another thing for you.
Okay.
At the end, when he throws the table at Scaffin, why doesn't he throw a chair?
Well, he probably had them all removed from the room.
That's a good answer, actually. I was like, it's going to be a chair breaking. It's a table.
He never lets himself be alone in a room with a chair.
Yeah, crazy.
Yes. Okay. Where do you think this is going?
I think he's going to die.
In this setting?
Yeah.
Okay. When do you think he's going to die? The next morning?
Oh, well, maybe he's not, and he's going to escape, and it's going to be all dramatic.
Okay. I mean, I don't
know where it's going. I don't actually. That's it.
The next chapter is chapter 13, which obviously is a portentous number.
It's got to be the last one, though, right?
Well, no. Then you've got. Let me just double check. So we've got next chapter II.
Oh no! So there's two more because the next one's 13. So
there's a 13 one. And a 14 and an epilogue, and a Zakalwe song and a States of War.
Oh my God! So, okay, it's a bit misleading. This numbering system.
Yeah.
Not really what I was led to believe.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, hang on. So the 13, and then will be I, and then 14, and then we get to the epilogue, and but we're closing in. We're coming down the home straight.
I know Kindle's telling me I only have 1 hour and 25 minutes in the book, and I'm a very slow reader, so that's not that much.
Yeah. Anyway, it's getting to some short chapters from here. Lots of things will start happening very quickly. Okay, so this chapter was a little bit more boys' own adventure than you're really after.
Yeah, it was too much war for me.
Okay. Well, next chapter, no war at all.
Cool.
Okay. And on that note, I think we might wrap things up. Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you for listening. Sheridan promises to be back whenever she reads the next chapter. Okay.
Thanks,
See you later,
folks.
folks.